Thank you, Jasper. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for those joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to see you again. And thank you for giving me your time and attention for the next half an hour or so. And as Jasper said, we are continuing our journey through the book. And very excited to show you. Just for those of you who haven't joined us every time, we've covered chapter 1, 2, and 3. And tonight we are heading up to your meta world. And if I speak about the meta world, it's got nothing to do with Mark Zuckerberg or with Facebook or the metaverse. This is something completely different, and I'm going to explain to you what it entails. And as we go through this journey, where we are almost halfway, it really is about unlocking of individual potential. So this journey is really there to enable you to help use your mental faculties to engineer the life and dreams and outcomes that you desire. So it really is about utilizing your map, your navigation, and your internal software to help you get to where you want to be in life. All right. So as we enter chapter 4, as we enter your meta world, now, meta world, this is where the magic happens. This world is above and beyond your daily living. It operates mostly outside of your awareness, yet it is where your emotional and cognitive superpowers reside. If you increase your awareness of metacognition, emotional intelligence, and meaning making, you can actually harness the most powerful internal resources at your disposal. Here you learn how to program yourself by using your meta state awareness. You learn how to change your thinking, your feeling, and your responding to optimize your life. And let me tell you a bit more about this meta world. And tonight we're going to touch on the power of choice, which we've already delved into previously. Then we are going to explore metacognition and emotional intelligence and how to use those faculties to optimize your life. Now, did you know that you can think about your thinking, you can think about your feeling, or you can even feel about your thinking as well as feel about your feeling? And in that lies your power of choice, in how you respond. Your response will determine almost every outcome you experience in life. Now, this is the power of self-correction, insight, learning, and of breaking patterns. Inside each of you, inside all of us, resides the ability and the executive functions enabling us to think about our thinking, so that we can take the time to choose the best course of action. In doing this, you can strengthen the thoughts that you experience, adding value and vitality to your life, and you can relinquish those thoughts that hamper your success, health, and effectiveness. So, as we go through life, things happen, and life throws us with curveballs. How we respond to what happens to us is critical in how we heal, develop, learn, grow, adapt, change, and even how we age. Setback comes in many forms. It could be that you are diagnosed with a disease, experience a decline in health, or you lose a loved one. You may get fired or retrenched, or you may be involved in an accident, or you have to go for surgery, anything. These things happen. These external events we have very little control over, but we have control over how we respond. What you do or how you respond with what happens to you is actually more important than what happens to you. The simple idea behind this is that you don't control what happens to you, but you control how you respond. And this is because you are responsible. If you joined us in session 2, we went through responsibility. So here are a few normal ways to respond to things happening. You may respond with fear and anxiety to a disaster. You may respond with dread and diagnosis to a disease. You may respond with apprehension to surgery. You may respond with anger to an accident, or with sadness to the loss of someone or something. You may respond with doubt and disillusionment to setback or disappointment. You may respond with helplessness to the idea of aging or morbidity. You may respond with hopelessness to a feeling of being unable to change. So although these responses to setbacks are normal and they're understandable, you have the ability to choose and to change how you respond to your initial response. Your choice in response has a knock-on effect in your life. So your choice in response will affect your behavior. This will bring about what you experience. This is based on your behavior. And this will affect how you think and feel, and that in turn affects how you respond. In this next section, I'm going to show you how to change your response to your response when something undesirable happens in your life, and why your reaction to what happens is so important. So, as human beings, we can think on different levels, and it's always the higher level of your thinking that has more influence on your experience. Our thoughts work in a structure, like a hierarchy. And just like in the military or in a business, the person at the top of the hierarchy has the most power. In the same way, the higher thought has more power. Unfortunately, most of us are unaware of the different levels and power of these higher levels of thinking and what they exert over our behavior, our perceptions, and our outcomes. Without this awareness, you can naturally not utilize this to your benefit. So, to run your brain, it is vitally important to be aware of this awareness of your thinking and feeling. The next step is to start using this knowledge. Now, the word meta comes from Greek, meaning above, beyond, or to transcend. Metacognition then can be described as thinking about your thinking, above your thinking, transcending your thinking. The higher or afterthoughts are the leverage points for change, for changing how you think, how you act, how you speak, and even how you age. I will show you how to move to a meta level of awareness, an awareness of your awareness. This nifty feature is called your self-reflexive consciousness, and it is uniquely human. It's a superpower that gives you the ability to respond in a new way. Thinking about your thinking creates meta-thinking. Feeling about your feelings creates meta-feelings. So this ability to go meta or above your first level thoughts and feelings or your reaction is your reaction to your reactions. This metacognitive power is your ability to respond in a new, fresh, and more empowering way. Let me show you what I mean. If I refer to the black cat running across the road, the cat you are now seeing is an internal representation. There's no actual black cat running across the road, yet you see it in your mind's eye. Now, if you think about the fact that you are thinking about a black cat running across the road that doesn't exist, how does that make you feel? A little silly? Or even curious? And how do you feel about being silly or about being curious if you are feeling curious? So if you answer those questions, then you would just have to become aware of your thoughts and feelings about your thoughts and feelings. So welcome to the world of metacognition. You will from now on experience an awareness of this more, especially if you pay attention to it. You're thinking about your thinking. So what do you think about the fact that you are sitting here right now in this session rather than watching TV or lying on the couch? How do you feel about that? Are you annoyed or are you rather proud of yourself? And how do you feel about being annoyed or being proud of yourself? So this can go on and on. Let me explain with a concrete example. If you experience any initial reaction, so something happens in the world, there's an event, trigger, you experience something, and let's say it brings about a state of fear. You're responding to this event or trigger. I say it's outside because the trigger or event is outside your body. It's happening in the world out there. So let's say your response is anger. So something happens and you get angry because someone cut you off in traffic, for example. So that's the trigger. Your first reaction is to become angry. Then you react to that anger with frustration without thinking about it, without realizing it. That's your response to your initial response of anger. You're now frustrated with your anger. The event is no longer affecting you. It's gone. But you have now entered your meta world. Now you're frustrated. You then respond by becoming irritated with your frustration. And this is a negative spiral that leaves you in a very unresourceful state. So what if you responded differently? Let's say instead of becoming frustrated with your anger, you became accepting about your anger. So you choose to respond different to the primary experience of anger. So your second reaction is that of acceptance towards your anger. Then you could become curious about your acceptance. Your anger loses its intensity and its hold on you. You may even feel calm about your curiosity. In this way, you are transcending your initial response and it's losing its hold or its intensity on you. If you realize and accept this powerful ability, you can choose to change how you react to your reactions. And this is the point or choice of decision. This is where your growth and your freedom lies, as what Viktor Frankl says. Here are a few examples of how you can respond unfavorably to your initial response. So you can be disappointed about the fact that you are sad. You could be worried about your disappointment. You could be ashamed about feeling ashamed. You could feel guilty about being embarrassed. You can feel embarrassed about feeling guilty. You could even be worried about your anxiety. So the trigger is long gone, but you start going into your meta world and you're responding unfavorably to your unfavorable response. And then here are a few examples of how you can respond favorably. You can respond by being playful about your seriousness. You could be accepting of your frustration. You could be indifferent about your worries. You can be excited about your fear. You can be accepting of anxiety. So this is just a couple of examples of how you can respond differently to an initial response. So the core idea is it's your reaction to your reaction that is the most important and that you have more choice over. It's your thinking and feeling about your thoughts and feelings that are more important than your initial reaction. You always get a second chance to respond better. So it's important to remember that your last response or your highest thought determines your state, your perception, your experience, and then the outcome. This is actually just the art of reframing. So when you move above all of your current framing and thoughts and feelings, you set up a higher, more enhancing frame. When you reframe, you establish an empowering frame of reference that enables change and that avoids you getting stuck in a state or a mood. So the idea is to move from having a negative reaction to having a neutral and then a positive reaction to your reaction. Here are some examples of reframing, simple examples. Instead of saying or thinking or feeling that I'm a failure, rather say or think or feel I'm learning. Instead of thinking I'm getting old, say I'm getting wise. Instead of thinking I'm becoming weak and frail, rather think I need to be more sensible and responsible. Rather than thinking I shouldn't feel like this, rather feel that my feelings are valid. Rather than saying, what if I fail? Why don't you say, what if I succeed? But rather than saying, what if it goes wrong? Rather say, what if it goes right? Why is this happening to me? Rather say, what is this teaching me? Instead of saying, I can't do this, rather say, I can try this. Instead of saying, I've wasted my youth, rather say or feel, it's never too late to change. So just simple examples of how we frame something, we respond different to the same situation. These are ways to influence the way you think and therefore feel. And with a new mental mapping inside, you're able to transform and change. This is one way in which you update your internal map or navigation system. And this happens in your meta world. You choose new ways of responding, and this becomes your default. You are making actual new neural pathways in your brain that will result in different outcomes and improved results over your life. So reflecting on your own thoughts is how you gain insight into your feelings, needs, and behaviors, and how you learn, manage, and adapt to new experiences, challenges, and emotional setbacks. It's the running conversation you have in your head, mentally sounding yourself out while you're making plans. Okay, this brings us to emotions. Now, last time we did cover emotions and we touched on one or two definitions of it. An interesting research paper revealed in 2018, it was titled Stress and Illness, a Role for Specific Emotions. And I love Sigmund Freud's quote on this that was many years earlier: unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and they will come forth later in uglier ways. So this research that I'm referring to described the difference in physiological response when either we express emotion or we suppress it. And it said that reappraisal or reframing, which we just discussed, and suppression have very different physiological associations in both the autonomic and central nervous system. In general, suppression is seen as less healthy. In other words, it's requiring additional physiological resources to constrain the powerful expressive forces than reappraisal or reframing, which requires less physiological activation. The research found that the cardiovascular response, for example, increase in heart rate, was associated with suppressing an emotion to be approximately twice as large as a response associated with simply expressing that emotion. So these findings support the idea that suppressed or unresolved emotions can cause physical as well as mental problems down the line. It is possible to accept and reappraise or reframe emotions for health, resilience, and longevity. This brings us to emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is really just how you handle or you respond to your emotions. So let's just say that emotions are neither good nor bad. They cannot be intelligent or stupid, smart, dumb, moral or immoral. So so-called negative emotions are not bad or wrong as such. They are only negative in the sense that they represent a warning or an alarm for something dangerous. Remember, we defined emotions last time. They only convey the difference between your internal map and the external territory. They're only a gauge in showing you the difference between what we expect and what we experience. So as far as emotions go, the core idea is you need to learn how to manipulate and manage your emotions. Otherwise, they will control and manipulate you. Now, the first step toward emotional intelligence is accepting your emotions as emotions, but they are not indications of your worth or value or identity. If you don't accept your emotions for what they are, you'll end up wasting time and energy fighting yourself, and this can lead to disease. By rejecting, avoiding, fighting, or suppressing your emotions, positive or negative, you create very destructive states and poor health outcomes. The next step is to know you have the power to choose about how you see or respond to your emotions. You have the ability to rise above the emotion you experience and reflect back on it. When you do this, you can think and feel about that first emotional experience. So, chronic negative emotions can cause inflammation and disease and send you into a negative downward spiral. The purpose here is for you to stop this unconscious process. The first step would be to identify and become aware of whatever negative feeling or thinking you are regularly engaging in. And this is how you use metacognition. Negative emotions can be in response to anything that happened in your life. The emotions can be your response to what someone says or does, an injury, diagnosis of a condition, or any obstacle. They can be about something that happened decades ago or recently. Anything that caused trauma, setback, disappointment, or a negative reaction. So, in the book, I go through exercises, through neurosemantic exercises that you actually takes you step by step through processes that helps you to identify accepting the emotions. We go through identifying triggers and reframing. So, because this is just a discussion about the theory of the book, we won't go into more detail on that. But in the book, we go through a lot more in terms of how you identify, accept, and appreciate emotions, and that how you can use that to stay healthy. We also go into more detail about triggers and how a state becomes chronic or fixed when we experience negative emotions, thoughts, or feelings about our initial emotion, and that negative downward spiral starts to habituate and become your frame of mind and a paradigm. Now, this threatens your health and your longevity. So you can reframe any event or experience in your life that could have had severely negative consequences based on your initial response, and then your response to your response. So we also go into identifying triggers. So if you can identify a trigger that avoids that initial response in the first place, that's even better. So the core idea I want to leave with you tonight is that your mental software or cognitive faculties in your meta world is what enables your self-reflective consciousness. Having this ability puts us above any other animal on the planet. So awareness of how you use your emotions and thinking, how that can be used to change your responses, behaviors, and outcomes is really a critical step in using your meta world for better outcomes. This really enables self-correction, learning, change, and the breaking of destructive patterns and habits in your life. And that is it for tonight.